All right. Let's talk about the one that you want to talk about. I'm surprised you didn't put this one first because I know you want to get into this, and I'm going to let you do your thing.
So this is obviously a massive offseason for the Colts. We got to find a quarterback, and you assume that's going to be in the draft. And I mean, it's basically going to have to be the Colts at this point. Only have 12 million in cap space. They don't have a whole lot of room to do much and go get people. It's going to be an interesting offseason. The Colts are usually not very active. Chris Ballard doesn't do a whole lot in free agency, but there are some big names leaving. Like you look at who's leaving the building: Unique Ngakoue, Rodney McLeod, who was quietly one of the best people on the entire team last year. Even at, I think he's 32 years old, he was amazing for the Colts last year. Still has tread on the tires. Paris Campbell, wide receiver, leaving. Ashton Doolin, wide receiver, special teamer, leaving. Bobby Okereke, one of the best linebackers in the league, leaving. Like the kicker, leaving. Like we have once again a hole to fill at kicker. Like there's some big holes for the Colts. It feels like almost the same conversation we've had year after year. Like you got to get the quarterback figured out. You got to get receivers. I feel like the defense is pretty locked in right now. Even with some of the guys that are leaving, like I just have faith that the defense is going to be good next year. But obviously the offensive side of the ball is one that has a lot of problems. And as a Colts fan, I have no idea what direction that's going to be, especially after the Panthers jumped the Bears to get to number one pick. That changes a lot.
How about that as Frank Reich's last cute Indianapolis?
Legitimately, and that was one of the things everybody was saying when he got the job as a Panthers head coach was, well, now the Panthers are going to jump the Colts and go to either 1 or 3 and take one of the quarterbacks and be the last you, like you said. And that's exactly what happened. And it changes everything you think about the draft. Like what's going to happen? Like now, do we go and get a guy like Jacoby Brissett and bring him in just as insurance in case we can't get the guy we want at the top of the draft, and end up trading back and getting a guy like Hendon Hooker who may or may not even be ready for the NFL season, and you probably have to develop a little bit. Like it changes everything with the Panthers trading up. So it'll be interesting to see what we do. And as a Colts fan, like I am now at the point of being nervous because I have no idea what to expect.
Well, and what kind of makes me nervous, this is a really talented draft. And as far as quarterbacks are concerned, and there's a lot of quarterbacks available, and it's always the question is who's always. I remember back to Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning, right? I mean, who's always going to be the better quarterback? No one ever really knows until it pans out. And now you've got easily 4, 5, 6 quarterbacks in here that can go in the first round. So, but I think I heard Ballard said that there isn't a Lawrence or a Burrow in this draft, so he's not really worried about it. Now there's 2 things could be happening. One, he really believes that, or 2, he's just blowing smoke to try to throw people off. But I don't know that I really believe that. I mean, I think out of this class, there's going to be a Lawrence and a Burrow, and maybe maybe a Manning or somebody come out of this. I mean, there's a lot of talent coming out here this year. I mean, they could just as easily bust. We've seen that happen over and over and over again. So I don't know. I don't know if he's blowing smoke, trying to be deceptive. But it's kind of hard to believe that anybody who understands what's going on in Indianapolis the last couple of years would believe that the Colts aren't just salivating to get their hands on one of these guys. And not only that, but on the guy that they want. I mean, that's why we talked extensively about the Colts trading to get the number 1 so they could get the guy that they want. And that Shane Steichen wants one of these guys. He's got his eye on somebody, and I'm sure he could work with everybody. And we could go on and on and on and on again. I don't want to beat this to death, but I just found that statement interesting in this draft because I don't really agree with him.
Yeah, and not only, I'm with you. I don't really agree with it. I think there are a couple, like you said, 3 or 4 guys in this draft that are going to be really good NFL quarterbacks, especially like if Bryce Young is able to stay healthy and that whole thing, and doesn't Robert Griffin his career. Like I think he could actually be a really good quarterback coming out of Alabama. But I remember a couple years ago when Tua and Justin Herbert were coming out. And Tom Telesco, after just a couple weeks after the draft, Tom Telesco went on the Pat McAfee show and said, like, it didn't matter. I think they drafted at 6 that year, and the Dolphins were right in front of them. He said it didn't matter if the Dolphins took Tua or Herbert. We liked both of those guys enough that we were fine taking either one of them. So to kind of reiterate that point, like we think there are 3 or 4 guys in this draft. The Colts are picking at 4, even if somebody trades up to number 3 to where the Cardinals are, and then you have 4 quarterbacks in the first 4 picks. Like, I think at the end of the day, all 4 of those teams are going to feel somewhat comfortable going into a season that they got somebody who they really believe could be a guy in the future. So, the one that, makes me nervous is Will Levis. When you put on the tape, he looks like Carson Wentz, and that freaks me out a little bit. So I'm a little nervous about him. But there are some guys in this class that I think are going to be really good and have a lot of athleticism. They're modern day NFL quarterbacks. So it makes me less nervous. But I know who I want in Indianapolis. Give me AR-15 and Shane Steichen's offense.
There's a hell of an argument there, man. A hell of an argument that nobody can argue with. I mean, you might have a little bit of argument about, some guys are better at this or better than that, better scholars, whatever. But that kid is athletically is a freak. He's got so much power, so much potential. And you take a guy like Shane Steichen, if he can do what he did for Jalen Hurts, that's hard to argue with. It really is hard to argue with.
And I was really hoping Houston was going to be the team that signed Jimmy Garoppolo. It was either going to be the Raiders or Houston was the last thing that was heard before he actually went to Las Vegas. So I was hoping he was going to go to Houston so that Houston wouldn't be so worried about a quarterback, but that is not the case. So hopefully Houston doesn't take AR-15 or C.J. Stroud. Honestly, I hope Houston goes with Bryce Young so that the Colts have an even better chance and pretty much guaranteed to either get.
Well, we're kind of off topic here, but who do you think Reich's going to take?
I honestly think Reich is going to take Bryce Young.
I do too. I do too. I think it's more of the traditional scholastic kind of cerebral quarterback. I do too. I think that's why he went for the jugular and he went for number 1. He knew exactly what he wanted, and he was coming in to get it. And I think that's indicative. I saw guys today saying, "Oh, well, he's just going to screw that up too." I don't believe that. I think this is the chip on his shoulder. I think this was Indy, and he leapfrogged over everybody. He got exactly who he wants because he knows exactly what he wants to do. Because he got burned having 5 or 6 quarterbacks over his tenure here, and he's like, "I'm going to get my guy, and we're going to do in Carolina what we couldn't do in Indy." I really believe
exactly. Like everything he envisioned he would do in Indy when he got the job and had Andrew Luck. Like that's
right.
Probably what he wants to replicate. We've already talked about before how the Panthers have built a great staff. Frank has put together quite the staff there. So they know what they want to do. There's been trades that they might even trade the number 1 overall pick, which I think is foolish. But it's a report that's out there. But I think they keep it. I think they take Bryce Young, and then Houston would unfortunately in that situation take C.J. Stroud, which is going to suck because I don't want C.J. Stroud and Trevor Lawrence in the division. But it is what it is at this point.
Right.